All right, I think we're going. So again, good morning and good morning to everyone. Welcome to our webinar on gaining financial insights through this COVID pandemic time. The point of us getting together was to really provide a local picture and a local perspective and take on some of the message that Brad Breeding shared in his presentation. If you had a chance to watch that webinar that we sent you a link for, that's awesome. You'll be much more prepared, I guess, and maybe have more questions to ask. But if you didn't, it's not a big deal at all. We're going to kind of, I'm going to pose some questions, and then if you have some that come as a result, please be sure to use either the chat feature that pops up. If you move your mouse, you'll see a chat button either at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on an iPad, I think it's maybe at the top. Or raise your hand. There's a raise your hand kind of button that you can click. And Rebecca Shake is our residency counselor. She popped off the screen for a minute, but she'll be back. She's going to be monitoring all your questions that you're typing in so that we don't have to worry about that. She's going to take care of that for us and then later share those questions with us. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. My name is Kate Webster. For any of you who don't know me, I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at Westminster Village. And we have some wonderful panelists on with us today to answer questions. I'll let you all introduce yourself if that's okay with you. And ladies first, let's start with Ms. Carrie Smith.
Hello, I'm Carrie Smith, as Kate said. Thank you for having me here today. I'm a real estate broker with Gibson Real Estate and owner of Stagecoach.
Sorry, okay, go ahead. And did it lock up on me, Carrie, or are you finished?
Well, I'm not sure. So my
Okay.
computer's going in and out. So
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's getting a little
Did you
bit
get
glitchy.
my? Yes. Are you able to hear me okay?
I can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can at least keep talking, I guess, if you feel like it goes out. And
Okay.
Brian,
Well,
go right ahead. Mr. Dyer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were still talking to Carrie. I apologize. I'm Brian Dyer. I'm head of the trust department here at Terre Savings Bank, and I'm appreciative of being included. I thought the Brad Breeding video and the webinar that he did was very good, very helpful, very similar to kind of advice that we talk to folks about all the time. So I thought that was really well done.
Mm-hmm. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Callahan.
Good morning. My name is Dan Callahan. I'm with Old National Wealth Management. I've got about 34 years of investment experience. So what's going on in the today, while is different than what we've seen before, is similar in a lot of ways. I liked Mr. Breeding's message on perspective, and especially as I've gotten older and more experience, you've got greater perspective on how to apply what's happening today to what's happened in the past.
Exactly. That's kind of the big thing that I remember writing down from the webinar itself, is putting everything into perspective. And he shared that timeline in particular about kind of, and suggested that everybody kind of reflect back on 2016 and how did you feel about the economy and your investments back then, and then kind of brought it forward and shared that. I mean, did you agree with that timeline that he kind of was putting out there?
Yeah, and it's funny, if it's not a big event like 2008 or 1987, people tend to forget. So whether it's 2016 or 1995 or whatever the year is, people forget. But it's good to look back and see the charts and see what's happened to the stock and bond markets over the past 5 years.
And I have, if I can pull it up and share. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Where's my screen share option? I had one of them pulled up that I was going to share with you all, but oh, there it is. I'll have to get Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca, if you can enable my screen share again, since you're the host, that would be awesome.
Dan, I think your words there are true. People's memory tends to be very short. And I think that's where, as Brad talked about a plan, and we talk with folks about that all the time, have a plan and stick to that. And, don't pay attention to the media. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction to something you see or a neighbor tells you. You've met with folks, you've talked about these things, you have a plan in place that works for you. And this is where perspective and objective come into place. And so I think Dan's exactly right that people's memory tends to be very short, and it's easy to have like I said, a knee-jerk reaction to some news bite that scares you into doing something that not in your plan.
Yeah. Does that happen with your clients? Are you still feeling the fear and some of that knee-jerk reaction, or have people kind of come around and has that subsided at all?
Go ahead.
I think people have been surprised at how well their investments have done. They expected them to be much worse than what they are. And in a lot of cases with my clients, we're back to where we were, if not ahead. And they're just shocked at that. Mm-hmm. So we try to contact them as often as we can to, reassure them and let them know that, we're just not, sitting at home in our pajamas, snacking all day long. We're actually working.
That's very true. And we have a similar experience, Kate. I sent you that article from Wall Street Journal that basically said, hey, when things blew up, people by and large didn't change their goals and objectives. They didn't change their portfolio. And they basically didn't listen to the media and stuck to the plan. So they saw that article talks about when things blew up, not much changed. Very true. We had a couple calls that we made that people had questions. Should I do something? But by and large, we said, look, you're on track. And I saw somebody in Basers 2 weeks ago, and they said, hey, that was great advice. It's not only back, but it's actually ahead of where, just like Dan said, where it was before.
Mm-hmm. And they were showing Brad was showing on the charts as well that like CDs in particular, had actually gone up. That rates kind of had stayed about the same. And now we're like 2 months after his presentation. I mean, have you seen anything change since then, or did he kind of call it right, I guess?
Well, Dan's well aware of this, but CDs with interest rates and what we see from the Fed, we think that interest rates are going to be very, very low for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that part of it probably off a bit, but I think you would agree, Dan, that those kinds of investments, while safe, are going to have a very, very low return for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and people on fixed income, the 10-year Treasury is about 0.6% for 10 years. So fixed income investments aren't paying anything. So it just reaffirms the fact that you have to have some exposure to the stock markets. And of course, stock prices go up and down. But the dividends, I think the dividend yield of the S&P 500 is about 3.1, 3.2%. So there's quite an advantage there. And then the taxation of dividends is an advantage over interest from CDs. They're not taxed as high.
And I think for your residents in particular, and what we see in the United States, people are living longer. And so not only as you work, gaining momentum and saving and your retirement plan, but because people are living longer, your investments really need to work longer for you as well. And so this is a message I think that you would want to have available to your residents is, just as Dan said, people are living longer. And so on a fixed income, you're not going to have the kind of return that you would having some exposure to stocks.
And are the folks that come to you, I know one of the neat things that I feel like Brad Breeding shared was having that plan. You have your objectives. You have to have objectives, I guess, to be able to make your plan. So you have to know where you're going to go and what you're going to do and what your plan is in order to create that plan and really build it up? And do most people come to you with that, or do you kind of have to help guide them through that and in your first appointments and meetings together?
We definitely have to guide them through that. Most people don't. They may know that they want to retire in 5 years, or they may want to pay for their grandchildren's college education, or they may have a goal here or there, but they don't have the complete plan.
Absolutely, and obviously with what's happening recently, the bills and what's passed in Congress with the CARES Act, it's really a moving target now. Unless you're in this all the time, it's very tough to keep up on the kind of estate plans that are available, and what's right as far as what might be a good move for you to make, and what's not a good idea. So there's a lot of moving targets there, and a lot of legislation that's been passed. You know, right now with what's been passed, if you would normally be required to take a required minimum distribution at 70.5, that's been moved to 72. So there's just a lot of, don't you agree, Dan? A lot of changes there that we're able to keep up on that most people don't know or don't understand, or I won't say they don't care, but they just don't know how it would affect them.
Well, if it's not a tragedy, the news media isn't going to report on it. So they don't get it off of the local news or the national news.
Right.
So you have to remind your clients of the positives, since the media certainly isn't.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think of another big message that he shared. I mean, clearly because I work in senior living, I felt like it was important is, you know, part of their plan is where they live. That's a big part of your expenses, and you know, it is your fixed income going to meet those expenses, and choosing where you live. And if folks are choosing to downsize, Carrie, is, you know, what's that housing market looking like right now? You know, whether they're just going to downsize to a smaller home, or maybe make a move to a retirement community and set themselves a plan for the long term and for the future. What's the market looking like right now in Terre Haute?
Well, as everyone knows, the market is pretty slim. The couple things that stuck out to me with the guys' webinar that we watched, it was excellent, is that if you're like waiting for something, if you're, you know, you have a plan and you're waiting, if you're going to move, you need to really define what you're waiting for. That stuck out to me, because if you're waiting, you might miss that opportunity in the Vigo County market to be making the most price per square foot that you're going to get in record history. So it's really a great time to move. And probably if you're thinking between downsizing into a smaller ranch or downsizing to go to assisted living or to move to Westminster or to any other facility, it's an excellent time to sell your house, because you're going to get the most to put back into savings or investments now. So the problem with buying a smaller ranch or something like that, or a condo lifestyle, would be finding it, you know, because it's not really out there. So in Vigo County today, I just looked this morning so I could give you accurate numbers. There's 171 single family residences on the market active. And in a normal day, you know, 2004 to 2019, there should be about 700 to 900. So that breaks down even further. Do you guys want to hear what that actually means?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Well, that means like for $100,000 to $200,000 homes, we have 40. We have from $200,000 to $300,000 homes, we have 17. Wow, you know, I have 17 houses to show. If someone tells me their budget is 200 to 300, I have 17 houses to take them to. 300 to 400, these are broad figures as well. That's a very large budget for someone to go that amount, but 15 houses there, and 400 to 500 is four houses, and then above 500, there's 11.
Above 500, Dan, are you selling?
I'd like to. But Carrie, people lose track of the cost it takes to stay at home. And, you know, I'm sure Kate has heard, well, it doesn't cost me anything to stay at home. Well, do you have a percentage of maybe the market value of the home that you can estimate the cost of keep staying in your home?
Mm.
Well, I don't actually have the exact figure because I wasn't prepared to tell you the percentage, but I can tell you that some of those things are baked in because we've been living in our homes for so long. I've been living in my home for 17 years, and the things that we pay for are, taxes. That's something we take for granted. So, something like an assisted living facility, you wouldn't have to pay for the lawn maintenance, the homeowner's insurance, things like that are just there, and we're paying for those when it could be going to something better for us. And so
I think certainly a factor there is with that, Carrie and Dan, is and you talked about family. I think what we see is people are looking toward assisted living or duplexes where they can have access to those kinds of things because they don't want to be a burden on their families.
Right.
Yeah. When we look at, in fact, let me pull that up because I thought that was a really great slide that he put together. There was a survey. Here it is. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yes.
This is from his presentation where, when looking at the biggest concerns about living a long life, a couple of these have to do with finances for sure. Everybody's worried about outliving their funds. But some of them don't. Some of them are about, loneliness and being a burden to your children or grandchildren, having a purpose in life, and health problems. But those do end up impacting you financially, of course, if you have serious health problems. But it's not all, I guess, about finances. It's about also putting yourself in a place where you don't become a burden to your children, where you maybe aren't lonely and have more people surrounding you, people that you have things in common with, and having some sort of a purpose, volunteering or something in mind. Those are all things that I think, when people think about retirement planning, they think just about, okay, I need to go see my financial advisor and kind of that's it. But there are a lot of elements really to that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
One of the things that I come across, being a seniors real estate specialist, is that a lot of people don't want to lose their independence. They're scared of that. And what I've found as a success story is that they gain so much independence because they're not out worried about raking their leaves and trimming their hedges and, making sure that certain things in their home that they had to maintain are taken care of. And then they move into a place like Westminster with all of the amenities already there, which makes their life so much easier. And so they are able to meet with their friends and do things outside of their home or apartment that, really is growth, and it gains so much more independence.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I was going to mention when we do financial planning for our clients, we usually do analysis. It's called Monte Carlo analysis that goes through all like 10,000 different scenarios of what happens if the stock market goes up or down or interest rates up or down. But generally, we try to tell them what are the odds that you're going to outlive your funds if you live to age 80 or 90 or 100.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of the nice things about Westminster Village being a continuing care facility. The Monte Carlo analysis may say that you're not going to run out of funds until you're age 85. Well, what happens if that happens? Well, at Westminster, you don't have to worry about it.
Yep. You're taken care of with a life plan agreement. That's for sure.
Right.
And other people I know make sure that doesn't happen with long-term care insurance policies. What are your takes on long-term care insurance?
You've got to be very careful because there's several hoops you have to jump through to qualify for different policies. There's been a number of companies that have gotten out of the business because their analysis back in the 90s on people's lifespans just didn't turn out that way. People lived a lot longer, and the companies ended up losing money, so that's why they got out of the business. But you've got to be careful. They can be very helpful, but you've got to be careful and you've got to do your research.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree, and I think the people we talk to, I think are for lack of a better term, wanting to be more in control of their own destiny. They're less likely to want to leave that to somebody else that they don't know as much about.
Mm-hmm. And do you all help your clients if they're investigating senior living? Do they have questions about like the financial stability of communities, or the long-term kind of services and projections? Are folks kind of looking that far ahead?
Not normally. It's based upon reputation and what they hear from their friends that may live at that facility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I think our community is small enough that people probably have some idea before they get to us on what they've heard from their friends or a relative that may be living there now. And while they maybe don't know the specifics, they have some idea about what's available and what they might want to do.
Mm-hmm. And I heard you say, Carrie, that now is a good time, if folks are interested in downsizing and making a move, there now might be a good time to get more money out of your house than you would have just a few years back. But how are you conducting home sales right now? I think that's another big concern for individuals is, well, I'm not even going out, I'm not going to the restaurants, and I'm not, visiting as much with family as I'd like to. So, I don't want to have strangers in my home either. How is that? What does that look like right now?
For each person, it's definitely different, and we take that into account, and we take it very seriously. So it can range from just, me personally, if they're not comfortable meeting with me, they can meet with me Zoom. We could list their home. They could leave their home, sit in their car for a while and just, stay in their personal space. And then I could come in with a mask and gloves and, do my own, assessment of the home, and then we could list their home, and then I would do a video recording and things like that. Or if they are comfortable just leaving their home for showings, then the people coming in can take off their shoes, wear a mask, wear gloves, and it's all provided by Gibson Real Estate and myself. And so we could do it that way as well. Or if they did have someplace to go and go ahead and move out, and that was in their plan, then it could be a vacant home, which would, be best case scenario if they did not want to have any, chance of being exposed to anything. So,
yeah. I suppose one positive thing about the real estate market is that you all were already very tech savvy and doing lots of, the internet was the first place people would go to shop for homes and look at photographs and things. And so that base kind of was already there for people to start their search. But ultimately, folks do want to get inside before they make a buying decision, I would assume. Or are there some people who buy it sight unseen?
Sight unseen. Just had an offer this week, sight unseen, on a very nice property.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just a little scary, as a seller, when you get sight unseen. You think, well, if they come in and they don't really like it anymore, well, is that a solid offer? And these are just some uncertain things, but you just kind of go with it and accept backup offers as well. So yes.
Really quick, there was a question from
this whole thing.
Oops, sorry, Eileen. Just before we go a little further, Eileen asked a question about the long-term care. It was mentioned that there's some research, and she'd like to know what kind of research on long-term care.
We actually had an estate planning council meeting where we had several folks speak about that. I think we could probably get that material together for her. Kate, were you there then?
I don't believe so. No.
One of our estate planning council meetings, we had some folks talk about long-term care and long-term insurance. So I can look to see if I've still got information from that.
And online, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality might be a good resource to look at as well.
What was that again? The Agency for Healthcare Research
and Quality.
And Quality.
AHRQ.
Okay. I could get that, look up those links and different things and share them with you, Eileen, so that you have an understanding. But for people who have already obtained a long-term care policy, I would assume you would recommend that they maintain that. Is that correct?
Usually,
Yeah.
and Eileen asked a question, Sherry has a plan. What questions does she need to ask? And the primary ones are, can my premiums go up? Because I've had clients that their premiums doubled all of a sudden in 1 year. Another one is, what do I have to do to qualify to get reimbursed for my healthcare plan? You need to know all the steps and the procedures to qualify.
Is there anything you can do? I mean, can they do that? Can just double your premiums and you have no recourse whatsoever? That just can happen?
Some do. And in the case of my client, she had no recourse. It's either pay it or, cancel it. And she ended up paying it, and within a year ended up using it.
Wow.
So it worked out in her favor.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question for Carrie. Are home prices going up in this area, in this community? Because for years they hadn't done much, but with the low supply, you would think prices would really be starting to rise.
Prices have stayed high for the last 6 months. They've been extremely high. I've got a couple appraisers in here that just spin their heads on the daily. But that supply and demand thing that we all learned in high school is definitely paying off, because it is real. And sometimes, we'll have, if something's on the market for that first day, you'll have multiple showings. It's just back to back to back to back, like every 30 minutes there'll be people, and you might have 3 to 5 offers. And then we have that escalation clause that has kicked in, which is an older tool, and it basically says that if you have competing offers and one of them is higher than the one that you would like to put in, that you would be willing to go up, say $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 at a certain cap, to basically guarantee that you would get the home. So unless someone else submitted an escalation clause that beat yours. So yeah, so it's a wild ride out here. And we're doing some also unconventional things, because I do have people wanting to either downsize or upsize. And then I have the opposite. So I've done some very unconventional stuff to where I will call people and say, hey, I know you want to downsize, and these people would like to move into a home with 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms with a pool and a basement. Would you like to trade homes to get appraisals and equal out the value there? And that's a really, something that's not expected from people, but it can happen. So
Sounds like the perfect scenario.
and it's
Well,
it is,
Carrie,
especially if you're an agent that, like me, that wants to get in there and do some, different things on a daily basis. It's super fun, and it's always learning too. So.
and Carrie, the low inventory is not just something we're experiencing. Really, for the most part, I'm painting with a bit of a broad brush here, but the housing market across the country has stayed really strong, and people refinancing is just just the numbers are just off the charts. And so really to jump in for somebody who's not experienced, it really behooves them to call somebody like Carrie, who does this on a daily basis, to get the questions answered.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's still a lot of people who are trying to sell on their own, and who think, obviously want to try to avoid that commission fee, and they think that that's that's going to hold them back. Are there a lot of for sale by owners?
There tend to start that way. A few work out, and then most of them turn then to a real estate agent, or they end up being sold by a real estate agent who had the buyer that then would claim that as a sold on their side. But yes, it usually involves a real estate agent at some point. So I think it's good to start with a trusted one that, because if someone brings a buyer to you, you got to realize who are they working for? They already had established relationship with the buyer, and they found this house. And even though you're selling it for sale by owner, you have no one representing you, which is a struggle for some people. Some people don't want to deal with that. And then other times, you could just kind of get taken advantage of, really. And that's not what I want for my clients. So.
I think
right in your corner for you.
Yeah, I think just like the state planning rules and regulations, if you are up to date on those, like you are, somebody really is missing the boat by not taking advantage of your expertise and trying to do that on their own when they may really miss something that is going to damage or hurt them in some way.
Correct. Yes.
Especially right now, and I mean, in this time when everything is changing so quickly and so many, rules and regulations are changing, and and then you've got, if I can't even imagine trying to sell your home on your own, but and having multiple offers, and what are the rules, what can I accept and not, and you want to do right by everyone, and that it seems like it's a much more difficult time right now to sell on your own.
Yeah, and if you were to sell on your own right now and you have a job or you have things that you need to do, it's almost a full-time job. You would have to be in, let strangers in your home, and then tour your home for about an entire week every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it's a lot of phone calls and a lot to handle. So
yeah. And we, Carrie, just quickly too, we invited Carrie Smith from Gibson Realty to be on with us today. She also is the only agent in town who has obtained a special certification to serve seniors, and it's SRES, right? Senior Real Estate Specialist. And
yes.
And so she took the time to get that special designation and do some additional education on working with senior individuals. And so the Westminster Village then kind of partners with Carrie as our preferred local broker. Carrie also, in her Stagecoach portion of her business, has a kind of a simple sale kind of an offer. I don't know that you would necessarily recommend it in this economy right now, but maybe for somebody who has a lot of work to do on their home before it could sell, might choose to want to just walk away from it and be done. And so will you share with us what it is that you offer there?
Yes, sure. Right now in the market, depending on your home and the level that you want to be involved, if you didn't want to be involved or your home was dated and you were worried about that, I would come in and assess your home for you and speak with you about your goals. And one of my slogans is I want to get you where you want to be. So we would make sure that, I have a passion to get you where you really truly want to be in the best case scenario in your best interest. And so 95% of the time right now, I'm going to tell you that it's in your best interest to put your home on the market. But if you didn't choose to do so, I would offer you a price for your home just as is to walk away. Mm-hmm. And so that's convenient for some, whether for whatever reason. So.
Yeah, I run into clients who maybe don't have family close by to help them with that downsizing process. I know when we survey prospective residents of what's holding you back, what's keeping you from making that decision, usually the number one thing is my stuff. What am I going to do with all my stuff? What am I going to do with my house? And so, of course, Westminster provides you the resources to help with that by partnering with Carrie as a broker, but also a downsizing and moving company that can help you with all of your things. Do you gentlemen hear the same from folks? Do you find that keeps people from making decisions and continuing, I guess, maybe with their plan to move forward?
Absolutely, and having been through it before with my mother, when she moved to Westminster Village, the amount of stuff that accumulates over the years is just overwhelming. So it's nice to have some help.
Yeah.
It is.
You have to
I try to. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate. I try to come with a toolbox, and that's really what I try to provide with the senior real estate specialist. And the toolbox is a whole array of things to help you and the professionals that can help you get you where you want to be. So elder law, the downsizing, auctions. I mean, we have connections in any shape and form. So.
I would really draw some parallels to investing your home. It's a very emotional decision. When people talk about money, it's a very emotional decision. So, these are the kinds of decisions, the big decisions that people maybe haven't given much thought to, particularly with their home, and maybe are, I won't say forced, but seeing the need that's going to be on their runway sooner rather than later. And so I think somebody like Carrie, who's gotten the certification, that can really help give them the tools that they need, because it's a very emotional decision. It's not something that people want to rush into, and they have to have a certain comfort level to make sure that it's the right decision for them. It's just like what Dan and I do with people's money. It's very emotional.
Great. I'm going to, unless you have additional things to cover, I just want to ask you, maybe we'll just go around the circle here and start with Dan. And what I guess kind of final word of advice would you give people, in this kind of pandemic time, who are trying to maybe execute on their retirement plan and move forward? What would you all say to them?
Well, first of all, turn off the news because it'll scare you to death. But after that, I think you need to find someone that you trust to advise you, whether it's Brian or myself, somebody that's been in business that has perspective with your investments, someone like Carrie that has the experience in the background to help with their home, and someone like you, Kate, to advise them, is senior living a good fit for me? Because you've seen people that it's good and some people it's not so good. So they need to get some advice from people that have been around that have perspective.
Good advice. And Carrie, what do you have to say?
Yeah, having the plan, the webinar that we watched before this webinar, said that the people that, just kind of flop around thinking that everything's going to turn out okay, or just never really put it into place, having that plan, really sitting down and maybe having some me time to figure out what do I want to do, where do I want to be, and then taking those steps, and like Dan said, getting with the people that you trust to get you to those steps would be really the path that I would take.
And really, just to top note what both Dan and Carrie have said, not only having a plan, but looking at it from time to time and see how it might have changed, or you might need to and adapt to that. You shouldn't feel so locked in that you can't make a change if it's needed from some circumstances happen. And I think where people get a little bit uncomfortable is they feel like if we talk about a plan with them and what they want to do is that they are going to be locked into something that they can't change. And so Dan, I'm sure Carrie, you will do the sit down and review with folks, where you are. We talk with people monthly, quarterly, yearly to review the plan to see what's changed. And life changes. So you have to be adaptable there. And while the plan is important, absolutely, because otherwise, as Carrie said, you're just kind of out there. That what we put in place for you will change from time to time, and so be willing to look at that and make that change if needed.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because from your responses you could give at any time at any year, and nothing has really changed. The pandemic, I guess, is my takeaway, is that has not really changed anything when it comes to your retirement plan. All the same rules still apply.
In many cases, I think so.
Yeah, it's a short-term phenomenon, whether it takes 6 months or 12 months, or even 24 months. In the grand scheme of things, it's still short-term.
Yeah, and I think another thing I might add, when individuals are coming to early on and trying to set their objectives so that you can help them make their plan, is I would encourage people not to be afraid to come and look at senior living communities. At least, even if you're 10 years away, 5 years away, 15 years away, whatever it is, at least come take a look, do some research, gather some information, and that way, it's more education to put in, tools to put into your plan as you're going forward. We work with people for many, many years before they eventually decide whether they're moving in to Westminster or not, and that's okay. That's what we're here for, is to kind of help educate and inform you on all the choices, because every community is different, for sure.
We often meet with people and we tell them, look, there's no charge to meet and talk about what we want to do. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Let us help you open up what you might be wanting to learn more about. And then later on, if they want to do something, we can talk about what that might look like for them. But absolutely, that investigation part of it needs to be there for everyone, and with the senior living and with what they're doing from their estate planning as well.
Mhm. Absolutely. Oh, well, I thank you all. I mean, I'm very uplifted, and I hope that our guests are as well, about what's going on right now. I think Dan said it best, turn off the TV.
Yeah.
Just stop watching the TV and the news, and continue living life and moving forward, and continuing with your plan, and seek the advice of the professionals instead of the talking heads on television. So
Right.
thank you again very, very much for your time. I don't see that there are any other questions. I don't see any other chats or hands raised. So I'm just going to wrap up. And again, thank you all. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Thanks for including me. I appreciate it. Have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.